Shadow, a magnificent wild Mustang, roamed freely across the vast open plains, his dark coat shimmering under the sun. He had spent his life running with his herd, feeling the wind rush past him as he galloped through fields of golden grass. His spirit was untamed, his strength unmatched, and his heart full of the wild energy that made him a true creature of nature. But on this fateful day, the skies darkened, and the air grew heavy with the scent of rain. A sudden storm rolled in, fierce and unforgiving. The wind howled through the valley, bending trees and sending loose dust swirling through the air. Thunder roared overhead, and lightning streaked across the sky like jagged scars of fire. Shadow's instincts told him to seek shelter, but before he could react, a deafening crack split the air. A bolt of lightning struck a nearby tree, sending branches crashing down. Startled, Shadow reared up, his hooves pounding the earth as he tried to escape the chaos. In his panic, he galloped toward the river, not realizing how much the storm had changed it. What had been a peaceful, flowing stream just hours before had now transformed into a raging, untamed beast. The water, thick with mud and debris, surged violently, tearing through the landscape like an unstoppable force. The currents churned, hungry and merciless, swallowing anything in their path. Shadow skidded to a halt at the edge of the riverbank, but the rain-slicked ground betrayed him. His powerful legs slipped on the muddy slope, and before he could regain his balance, he tumbled forward. His body crashed into the rushing water, the cold shock stealing his breath. The current immediately grabbed hold of him, dragging him downstream. He kicked furiously, struggling against the relentless force, but the river was too strong. Just when it seemed like he would be lost forever, his hooves struck something solid. A jagged rock, standing defiantly in the middle of the flood, became his only refuge. Desperate, Shadow pulled himself onto it, his muscles trembling with exhaustion. He stood there, soaked and shivering, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The rock was small and slippery, barely large enough to support him. Worse, the water was rising fast. Shadow lifted his head, his eyes scanning the horizon, searching for a way out. But all he saw was the endless fury of the river, churning and roaring around him. He let out a loud, desperate whinny that echoed through the stormy air, a call for help, a plea to the wild. But was anyone there to hear it? Shadow stood on the slippery rock, his muscles trembling from exhaustion. The river raged around him, its muddy waters crashing against the stone with relentless force. Rain pounded down, soaking his black coat and making the rock beneath his hooves even more treacherous. Every time he shifted his weight, he felt the stone slick with water, threatening to betray him. He couldn't stay here forever. He had to move. But where? The water was rising fast. What had been a small island of refuge was quickly disappearing under the furious current. Shadow's breaths came in heavy gasps, his wild heart pounding against his chest. He was a creature built for the open plains, for running across endless fields with the wind at his back, not for battling the merciless grip of a raging flood. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to fight, to survive. But there was nowhere to go. On the distant riverbank, a figure stood watching. Jake, a seasoned rancher, had been riding home when he heard the distant cry of a horse carried by the wind. Something about the sound struck him deep, a desperate, pleading whinny that sent chills down his spine. He urged his horse forward, following the sound until he reached the river's edge. What he saw nearly made his heart stop. In the middle of the deadly river, barely clinging to a jagged rock, was a wild Mustang, soaked, trembling, and utterly trapped. Jake recognized him immediately. It was Shadow, the wild stallion that roamed these lands, the leader of a small herd. Many had tried to tame him, but no one ever could. Shadow was pure, untamed spirit, and now he was in more danger than ever. Jake's mind raced. He had faced many challenges as a rancher, but nothing like this. The river was too deep and too fast to cross. A rope wouldn't reach. A boat wouldn't survive the powerful currents. And Shadow, strong as he was quickly losing his strength. Jake clenched his fists. He couldn't just stand there and do nothing. But what could he do? Shadow let out another desperate cry, his voice almost drowned by the roaring storm. His legs wobbled, his body weakening. Time was running out. Jake knew that if he didn't act fast, the wild horse that had defied capture, that had ruled the plains so fearlessly, would be lost forever. Shadow's breath came in short, ragged bursts. His body trembled with exhaustion, and his hooves struggled to find grip on the slick, crumbling rock. The relentless river surged higher, clawing at the last bit of solid ground beneath him. The deafening roar of the water filled the air, drowning out everything else. His wild eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but every direction led only to the violent, merciless current. His powerful legs, built for speed and endurance, now felt heavy and drained. Then through the storm, a sharp, piercing cry rang out. It cut through the howling wind and crashing water like a command from the sky itself. Shadow's ears flicked up, and his weary eyes turned upward. There, soaring above him, was a golden eagle. Its massive wings stretched wide, catching the wind effortlessly as it glided in slow, deliberate circles. The eagle's golden feathers glistened even in the dim, stormy light, and its gaze, fierce and unwavering, seemed locked onto Shadow. It didn't fight the storm, it moved with it, bending and flowing like it was one with the raging elements. Shadow watched in awe, his instincts sharpening. The eagle let out another cry, a call both wild and commanding. Something deep inside Shadow stirred, a primal instinct, older than fear, older than pain. His kind had roamed these lands for generations, fearless and free. He was not meant to die here, trapped by a river. He was born to run, to fight, to survive. With a sudden burst of energy, Shadow pawed the rock, his nostrils flaring. The eagle banked to the side, almost as if showing him the way. The Mustang's heart pounded, his muscles coiling like a spring. He had only one chance. With a final powerful snort, Shadow leaped. His strong legs pushed off the slippery rock, launching him into the roaring current below. The moment felt like an eternity. Airborne, weightless, his body stretched out in defiance of the deadly waters. The river waited to swallow him whole, but Shadow did not surrender. The fight was not over yet. Shadow plunged into the raging river, his powerful legs kicking against the merciless current. The water fought to pull him under, but his spirit refused to break. Each stroke was a battle, his muscles burning as he pushed forward. The golden eagle soared above, its cry echoing through the storm as if urging him on. Jake watched from the shore, his fists clenched, heart pounding. The Mustang's struggle seemed impossible. No horse could survive this. But Shadow was no ordinary horse. He was wild, untamed, and filled with a relentless will to live. With one final desperate lunge, Shadow's hooves found solid ground. He scrambled up the muddy bank, water streaming from his soaked coat. For a moment he stood there, breathless, his chest heaving. Then, with a mighty shake, he flung off the last remnants of the river's grasp. Jake could hardly believe his eyes. Against all odds, the Mustang had conquered nature's fury. Before he could take a step forward, Shadow turned, his dark eyes meeting Jake's for a fleeting moment, an unspoken acknowledgement, a silent bond between man and beast. Then, with a powerful neigh, Shadow reared up and galloped away, disappearing into the misty wilderness. Jake watched in awe, knowing he had just witnessed something extraordinary, a miracle of courage, instinct, and the untamed spirit of the wild.